Hi, welcome back to our second video lecture for the last couple of weeks here of school, where we're going to be talking about just documentation and research in a very general kind of way, because I've talked about this on and off, and nothing wrong with going back and just sort of reviewing some of the main ideas, because you're now at the halfway point writing your research report, and yes, it's worth a fair amount, so I want to make sure that you have every tool available to you to write a good report. So we're going to look at what's called the CRAP test, C-R-A-A-P. That's a CRAP test for evaluating sources, where to go to get information, what to cite, how often to do so, and also the issue of plagiarism, which is always important. Okay, so right now, let's see currency. Is the information timely? Is it up to date? If you're doing a report on public health and public safety, you want to make sure that your material is up to date. Think about how often information that's been disseminated through public channels regarding, say, the pandemic, how often that's changed. So would we look at something that we initially thought back in March of last year, of 2020? Well, no, of course not, because things have changed. I mean, this brand new thing occurred, COVID-19 or coronavirus became COVID-19, and on we went. So all those things we want to make sure that we apply when we are looking at our material, that it is current, right? When was it published or posted? Is the information updated regularly? Is it revised on a regular basis? And also, too, are the links functional? If you click on other things on that one web page, does it act like a kind of web portal that allows you to travel further, or does it kind of lock right up and all you can look at is this one page? So that will tell you whether or not it is it's current. Okay, CR, relevancy, the importance of the information. Now, relevant to your specific needs, right? Does the information relate to your topic, your main thesis, or at least answer the question that you pose in your text? Who is the intended audience? When you find this material online, is it does it have a political agenda, an explicit one? Does it try to present material in an objective manner, which is always good? Is the information at an appropriate level? Is it severely dumbed down, or is it so elevated that you literally need a PhD to read through it? Okay, that's not good. You need to have it somewhere in the middle. Have you looked at a variety of sources before determining that this is the one you're going to use? In other words, is this maybe the first page that you've gone to, or the fourth or fifth? Because now you've had a chance to look at almost a half dozen different websites that will tell you whether something is useful. And that is important, because you need to be able to compare and contrast and say, well, look, I've looked at 10 different essays, and these 5 here are really relevant. Now, this other one, maybe the 6th one, I'm going to hang on to it. But these 5 are very good. Until you have a chance to look at those, you're not going to be able to know that those 5 are in fact useful and relevant, because you haven't looked at enough of them. So do make sure that you are aware that there is other material out there, and that you're comfortable using that particular source. Okay, CRA for authority, the source of the information, also very important. Is there a recognized author or publisher or source or sponsor for this material? Are the author's credentials given? Do we know who they are? Do they teach at Princeton or Yale? Are they affiliated with the London School of Economics? Are they associated with some recognizable institution? So that is important. What qualifications does the author have or has, right? What do they have to write on the topic? Again, this is one of the reasons why I say refrain from using blogs and vlogs, because these are simply people that have an opinion. Of course, we all have an opinion, but our opinion can become a fact if we can support what we think with verifiable points, right? Verifiable facts. Is there contact information? Excuse me. Is there contact information? Is there like an About Us page, or even it says Contact Us? That's also very useful. The URL, right? That should tell you roughly where it stands in terms of the educational spectrum. A .com site, short for commercial. A .com could also be websites that do have information. .edu, .org, those are organizations or educational institutions. Typically more reliable. .gov, of course, is short for government. whatever government you're looking at, whether it's Canadian, American, Indian, whatever, those are useful. .NET also quite good, but just be aware that .edu, .gov, and .org tend to be somewhat more reliable simply because we know that these are recognizable institutions. The second A for CRAP, which is accuracy. Is it reliable? Is it truthful? Is it correct? Or does it have some weird political slant that is trying to claim that, climate change isn't real or gun laws aren't real, etc., etc.? Where does that information come from? Even though you're looking at it on a page, is that information properly cited? Or is it just a bunch of blanket statements with quotations around them? Who said it? Where can I find this quotation? So ask yourself, where does the information that I have found on this page, where does it come from? Is the information supported by evidence, citations, footnotes, endnotes, examples? Has it been reviewed or refereed or peered, right, by another group of individuals? That's why when you go on the digital library through FOL, many of the essays that you are going to find, right, that you come across are peer reviewed. They're probably the best ones you can get because these are other experts in the same field who have read through that person's work and have said, yes, according to the general consensus in the field, this is correct and we endorse this. So make sure that information is legitimate in the sense that it is supported by evidence, it's peer reviewed, and it identifies where it comes from. So if that's the case, can we verify any information that comes from another source or from personal knowledge? If it's personal knowledge, if somebody has 15 years of experience as a firefighter and is writing about forest fires, that's legitimate. If I'm sitting at home, and I'm still living in my basement and, my parents' place, and of course, no, I'm not digging against people that are there because of financial reasons, but, they don't get out a whole lot, is what I'm saying. That's the tone at which I like to present this. If you have very little actual outward experience, but you're writing at length about the flat earth of society and all the rest of this, it's not very reliable. Does the tone of the language seem biased, or is it objective? If it's biased and it's full of sort of emotional buttons that they're trying to push, it's trying to be persuasive for the wrong reasons. It's being persuasive on an emotional level to get you mad about something, as opposed to persuading you with scientific facts, right? With facts of one sort or another. Spelling, grammar, and typographical errors. Usually those are the kinds of emails you get in your spam folder, that are misspelled and can't spell Walmart or something like that. Spell Rogers with two G's, whatever. Those you want to stay away from because it identifies the degree to which the material is not reliable. And finally, for CRAP, the last letter, P, purpose, the reason the information exists. What is the purpose of the information that you have found? Is it there to inform, teach, sell, entertain? How many times have you seen videos that look really important and then in brackets and usually very small font for entertainment purposes only? So keep that in mind. A lot of stuff is out there for entertainment purposes only, and posit a whole range of outrageous things and try to make it look like it's legitimate, that somehow it is scientific, quote unquote. So ask yourself what the purpose of the information is: to inform, teach, sell, entertain, persuade, whatever. Do the authors or the sponsors make their intentions or purposes clear? Is it clear why they are presenting this information in the way that they are, with that persuasive intent, right? You don't want to read something and go, okay, well, what was the point of all of that? Because it's pretty, inflammatory and volatile information, and yet there's no reason why it's there. They're trying to pass it off as fact. If that is the case, ask yourself what the point of view is, right? Objective, impartial. Is it propaganda? Is it just an opinion piece? Is it what's called an op-ed, right? Opinion and editorial. Is there political, ideological, cultural, religious, institutional, or personal biases in that paper? Now, personal biases, it's difficult to get away from those, but you can certainly offset your personal bias. Now, personal bias could be you feel passionate about something. And obviously, people feel passionate about all kinds of things. We should care. But if the entire paper or the entire piece of information is only personal, not backed up with anything, well, that borders on propaganda, right? Because you're not being objective and presenting both sides of an argument. You're only presenting yours. You're, the proverbial, I'm no expert, but, have you ever noticed this? Stay away from it because it's not a legitimate site. So, that's the crap test, right? All those things. If it passes the crap test, then it's good. But if it fails, right, there's a good chance that it's not reliable. So you want to make sure that you look at it critically and crucially. And sure, it may kind of give you information and ideas, but be very, very careful. Ask yourself, right, does it pass the crap test? Because if it doesn't, you want to make sure that you can identify why, right? It's propaganda. It's heavily biased. It doesn't present any statements with, backed up with evidence. Okay, that's how you evaluate information. That's how you become a good researcher. Okay, when we come to researching, a couple of you have asked me by way of emails about this issue, and it's basically this. The reason for citing outside information is to demonstrate that you have done the research from credible sources to help you with your decision, to help you to create a foundation for your main thesis. And so what you're doing is you are looking at that information, and it's helping you to formulate a decision and present it to the reader, because it is based on facts that you have found. And those facts should be basically peppered or sprinkled throughout your paper. But you don't also want to be drowning in other people's opinions and secondary opinions. It needs to be clear to the reader why you think this material is relevant, right? That's your voice. And the way in which you put it together, sure, it'll be slightly different than the way someone else may put it together using the same material. But don't lose your voice in those secondary sources. Make sure that, and I don't mean using the pronoun I, but make it clear to the reader why you, as the writer and researcher, think this material is important. We need to keep in mind the following. If you have a tendency to write I all the time, try using we, because what's happening now is you're aligning yourself partly with the reader, right? You and I together, me, the writer, you, the reader, we need to keep this in mind. But you're also implying and inflecting that we also means you, the writer, researcher, and the material you have found. Me, the writer, and these people over here, the peer-reviewed experts, agree on this statement. So make sure that part of your voice still comes through. So you want to strike that balance between your voice being heard and at the same time having your ideas and your main thesis properly cited. Okay, Wikipedia, I mentioned before, can be useful. Don't quote from it because that is not helpful. But what you can do though is scroll down to the bottom of the Wikipedia page and click on some of those PDFs that the person that wrote that Wikipedia entry, they used, and see if that might help you. So Wikipedia, using it that way, Google and Google Scholar specifically, decision, spelled, that's not very good on my part. Google Scholar and library resources, journals and books for sure, PDFs, peer-reviewed journals, also very useful. But that's essentially what you want to do. You want to make sure that you're finding good material. And so if you can keep on doing that, then you should be fine. And finally, remember images that you find that are really useful, but you need to also know or remember where you found it. So I would say as soon as you do, if you want to source it somewhere, what I typically do is I keep a separate document where I just basically put in the picture and immediately go back and get the URL and put it right underneath. Now, if I don't use it, that's fine. But if I do use it, whether it's in my research paper or in my PowerPoint presentation, which will be the last thing you do, you've already got the image and you have your proper citation. And put the citation directly under the picture. And you can put it in small text, but put it there so I can see it. So regardless of where I see it, whether it's in the PowerPoint or the report, you must cite images. Because if you don't, that goes against you in terms of your secondary sources. Now, even if you have created that image, let me know, right? Let me know that you put together this pie chart, bar graph, flow chart, whatever it may be, or you took a picture. If you took an actual picture and you scanned it and you uploaded it, just put photo by your name. So the image search is just as important as the text search, but make sure that you know where you found that image and make sure that you cite it. Okay, so that's the second one, basically research reports, a kind of overview, and I'm going to come back in just a moment with the third of four, I believe, video lectures. See you back in a moment.